Hello, thanks for signing in and viewing this video on Raspberry Pi technology. In fact, I'm going to look at some cases in this video. This is the company KKSB. They're based over in Sweden and they produce some nice cases for a whole range of single board type computers. So they do these ones for, this is actually an Odroid, and they also do the Raspberry Pi type. And just recently they've released some new ones for the Raspberry Pi4, which has different ports and connections and cables coming in and out, so they've upgraded their case to be able to fit that. So I'm going to zoom down into the detail in front of me and show you these cases operating, installing them, and give you a general overview of the fit and build process on them. So without further ado, I shall zoom down onto the subject matter and we'll go from there. Right, so what we have here before me is a range of bits and pieces. I have a Logitech keyboard which I'm using on Bluetooth to connect to this Raspberry Pi 4. The Raspberry Pi 4 has HDMI out, which is feeding into my sort of video switch which I'm recording here. I've also got the classic Raspberry Pi 4 new mouse that they produce, and I'm running some power into there, which is now USB-C in fact on the new Raspberry Pis. So I did have already in my hand here a case from KKSB, and this was their one for the Odroid. So the Odroid XU4 is a different type of single board computer. As you can see, it has a nice heatsink sort of space in the top of that one where that allows that some cooling, and various other ports on the side. So that's the Odroid one, which I won't go into a lot of detail on, but I did want to show you the build of that. So, and the case is otherwise quite simple, nice little power switch on there as well. And things have come a long way with that in terms of KKSB's latest models for the Raspberry Pi, which I've got here, in that they are of a higher quality, I think. So I shall show you those right now. So first off, this isn't a paid review anyway, so I thought I'd get that out of the way. So this is a KKSB Raspberry Pi 4 aluminium case. Some shine off that. And you can see it's like a machined full-on aluminium style of case, which makes it a little bit smarter looking than their older models. And there's not much there, is there? It's a really nicely machined aluminium overall case, obviously with all the fittings now for the new Raspberry Pi 4, and a base plate that comes with that as well. And that base plate itself, you can see clearly it has holes there ready to mount that on a wall or on anything else that you can put a couple of screws into. So that's an interesting feature, that they've already got that on there ready to take a wall type mount if you wished so. I mean, otherwise it's just very smart, isn't it, as a aluminium box. And in the pack there are a couple of tiny little, yes, tiny little bits of perspex, which basically go inside here to show you the lights which are on the Raspberry Pi 4. So yeah, those two little tiny perspex pieces go in the side of the case here to enable you to see the lights, of which you can see very faintly on the side of that Raspberry Pi there. So before I show you any more fine levels of detail and zoom into this, I will just go onto their website and show you what they've got on there. So if I just switch over to the other port, and what you can see here is exactly the desktop I was running and using there in front of me, that little tiny Raspberry Pi 4, and I'll just fire up a browser from there. So this is the KKSB site. They're over in Sweden. In fact, there are a place called Kungsbacka. Hopefully that's pronounced correctly. And for those of you that wish to know, I'm from the UK, and this is the area that I've come from. I think this place called Kungsbacka is, yeah, it's near Gothenburg, just south of it there, across the water from Denmark. So now we know geographically where these are coming from. I shall just show you through their website. So you can see here, just like everything else on the sort of Raspberry Pi and single board computer world, things tend to be relatively cheap in terms of cases because they are built in a kind of economical way really for these single boards. That one I was just showing you before, the Odroid case, here it is with the space in the top for the heatsink, and that's their Odroid case, which they've done an aluminium version of that as well. But if I whiz down a little bit on their website, they also have their Raspberry Pi one, so you can see sort of near the €40 mark, the KKSB Raspberry Pi 4. And that just gives you a close-up view there of the device itself. It's giving me some instructions there, which I'm now having a keen eye on because I'm going to show you the build of this in a moment. And yeah, it looks really nice. I say visit their website, but obviously if you're in the UK or if you're overseas, I think there are other websites they do distribute through the trade, as well as sell directly like this. The other one I've got here with me, which I will show you, is I've got this one here, the black silver, I believe, too, which is, you know, it's a cheaper option as a case, but obviously doesn't have as solid and nice a build as the aluminium version, which I'm going to show you. Right, so that was a quick clip of their website. I'll now start to get things out of the way here, so I'll get this keyboard out of the way and present this in a little bit more detail to you so you can see inside there. So right, zooming in. So off the back there you can see this is in fact machined in to the aluminium and allows the connection of a small pad. It allows the connection of this small sticky sort of pad that's supplied with it onto that square. Then when you put this board in, the main processor is there and will be butted up against this conductive material. So in a sense the entire aluminium case is acting as a heatsink for it. Once that's stuck on there, it pushes down against the chip there. Otherwise it's got all the ports on the side for the network cable. The stack of 4 USB, the USB 3 and USB 2 go there. You've then got the dual HDMI outputs, the USB-C connector for power, the audio output here, and on this back side you've got these two little sections there that take those, where are they in the other bag, very easy to lose, but they'll take the lights so you can see these light notifications from the board itself coming through. So pretty complete looking. Oh, and that's where the you slide in your SD cards underneath there, so a nice gap for that too. Obviously important because you just simply can't load it without it. So the back plate is very simple again. It has a sort of grill on there to obviously let some airflow potentially through, unless there's some connectors that connects to, which I'm unaware of, and also points on the back to mount onto a wall or somewhere where you can put screws to keep the whole thing out of the way, neatly up out the way. So just looking at how this fits together, it's a very clean fit, and obviously importantly lines up with those holes for the screws to come up from underneath. So if I just zoom out a little bit, so now we've seen it close up, I shall move the other one out of the way. And I just so happen to have another board which isn't powered up so I can touch it to be able to mount in here. So let's see how we go. It looks like a very simple job. Take this tiny baggie out. So yeah, we have 4 screws, 4 little rubberized feet to go on the bottom. This conductive pad, which has got a sticky back, which I will need to take apart to be able to stick it on. So I assume it's sticky on both sides. Yes. So there you go, 2 little bits of plastic to remove to get that onto there, and that provides that conductive pad for the chip on the Raspberry Pi 4 to connect up with. So now we're in there. It needs a little bit of alignment to make sure the various pieces are poking out appropriately. So there wasn't much needed around there, was there? A little tiny bit of nudging required. Right, so next up, just need to get the actual 4 screws into place, and therefore put the top case on. So that fits in there neatly. I assume these milled out areas here are just because that provides it a degree of airflow in there. Actually, what I haven't done, I haven't put in those small pegs. So before I finish that, let's have a look at putting those light pegs in and go in there. I assume should have put them in from the other side. Let's have a look. No, they go there fine. Just a bit of a push in to get them in. Let's zoom in on that action. Yep, so just a tiny piece of acrylic. Obviously pushing them in from this side means that they're sticking out slightly proud, but that may work because the light that falls on them from the other side of the little acrylic nub is going to then be reflected out through it. Maybe provides it a slightly larger area to refract the light out there. But anyway, that's in. Back to the back side. Yeah, they're just on their little sticky back. So if I put one into these corners, so there we have it, the KKSB Raspberry Pi 4 case, aluminium milled version. My camera's enjoying picking up the reflection and blasting out the white balance, but it's a smart little case. So what I will do now is I'll boot it up, wire everything in, and just see that everything's working fine with the image that I've had off the other one here, and just see if we can get connected to it. So I'm now going to shut down the other one and plug that one in. So quite simply take out the power from here. So that's now my spare case, and I'm going to use so I'm going to remove the SD card from the back of there and put that into my new case. Nice weight to it as well, so that obviously makes it quite stable, a bit more stable on the desktop. So that's the slot for the SD card, and it fits in there neatly, as you can see. Maybe zoom in on that. So there we are, nice and up close, and you can see again where those 2 little acrylic plugs go in, and the location for the SD card. Very neat finish on the milling. Network port, USB 3, USB 2, KKSB logo, audio out, and HDMI, plus the USB 3 port there too, and then the underside again. So let's wire this beast together. So first off, we've got the HDMI, which I'm going to go into the first port. So this is the official mini HDMI connector from Raspberry, which has the logo in there, and then a USB 3. So we now can see the brightness on those connectors. So we can watch these lights change here. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's disk access. When I say disk access, it's disk access to the SD card in there. Now that should be booted, because these are relatively quick to boot. So let's switch over to that and just see that it's booted up okay. Right, it certainly has. Here's the desktop. Ah, I didn't plug in my mouse. Let's just switch back and plug the mouse in while we're at it. So, USB ports down there. Just use one of those USB 2s. Oops, get it around the way around. It's gone in there. It's gone in there fully. You can see again, because it's this Raspberry one, they have got a kind of a larger roundness on the edge, but it's fitted in okay. Had a nice firm connection. Let's go back to it. Now I have a working mouse. Let's restore those pages because I just unplugged it last time. Well, that's it. We're back on their website again. And just as a reminder again, this was the Raspberry Pi4 KKSB Aluminium case, the milled case, very nice build. And just gave you an idea there how quick it is to sort of put these things together. It was hardly much effort at all, so very nice quick build process. And if I go back to that desktop again, we can see it here. And you can see those little lights on the end, which I particularly like because it does sort of show you the disk access when it's buzzing on there. And overall, very smart, small case and very solid. So, zooming back out, back in action again. So now I have my other spare Raspberry Pi 4 here. I'm going to put it into another one of their cases, which is the Pi 4 case, which is in black and silver. So this is more of their standard type build. And this is very much like the one I had for my Odroid, and just remind you of that older case for the Odroid. So it has that sort of half shell with a grill. You can see it's a similar sort of build again. So yeah, I mean, similar type of set of kit again. Let me move this one out of the way momentarily. That's one. And a little bit of a pack in there. This one doesn't have the sort of heatsink built in, so it is a sort of an empty case essentially, but it's got all the right connections and milled out sections for the USB 2, USB 3, Ethernet on the side of there. And yeah, it's a nicely made case by the looks of it, but again, obviously not as high a grade quality as the milled aluminium, but still nice for what it was. And let's just see how we go together with this then. So the first thing I've noticed is the side does have this similar little tiny slits, the best way to describe them, which have these connector points on the side here, and that allows the whole thing sort of be clamped together when it's back together there. But let's get this thing on the road then. I'll start building it up. Obviously the first thing it's worth mentioning, you should really do these when you're dealing with a piece of delicate electronics by putting them onto an anti-static mat and getting yourself connected up so you don't do any damage to the processor and chips on there. But I'm not doing that, so a bit of a risk taker, but let's get it together and then see from there. Right, so very simple. Slots in there, and then these 4 screws go in. So it couldn't be easier really. You can see instantly what side this goes on. You can also see they've put a cutout on there, and that's to show those LEDs again. Obviously slightly more clever in terms of how they've done that on the aluminium case, because rather than just revealing them, it's used the small acrylic plugs to transfer that light out and refract it out there a bit. You just line up with these openings here to enable that to sort of slot in and clamp itself into the case. So you may need a little bit of force of sorts, but nice job. Very neatly together. See, I haven't got a heatsink, but I think you could put a heatsink in there if you needed it. So that's it, and then it's a case of putting the rubberized feet on the underside of this beast. Complete. So nice little case. Obviously LEDs showing on the side there, micro SD slot, and all of the other goodness that you connect into with your Raspberry network. USB 3, USB 2. In fact, they've put the text on there that's not massively visible, and of course all good fans of Raspberry, once you've used the device for more than 5 minutes, will remember where these things are anyway, but it's nice that they have labelled it up with a 2 HDMI, audio, USB-C. So great little case. So those are the 2 cases I was going to build. I do have a couple of others just to show, which is aluminium and grey version here. But essentially it is nearly exactly the same as the last one. But this is for the Raspberry Pi 3 rather than 4. So I haven't got a Raspberry Pi 3 to hand. I do have one somewhere stashed away. But you can see it has a different set of connections on the side. The full-size HDMI for the Raspberry Pi 3, the HDMI power, the USB power, the same audio out connections, and then the network and other ports on the side. But yes, you can see again similar build to this metal case. You mount the single board computer in there, the Raspberry Pi 3, and line it up with the ports, and it's that sort of almost like a clamshell type approach. Again, this one is in a smart grey sprayed colour, which looks rather slick. So again, very nice, and the usual screw kit is supplied in there too. So if you are a Raspberry Pi 3 fan or an Odroid fan, because I still have my Odroid case, which I'll pull over here as well, they do a complete range really for every single board computer out there. I did see on their website actually even a Latte Panda style case as well, and that's a new single board computer, very powerful one, which I'm looking at investing in as well. But there you go. I'll just bring out this one as a kind of a showcase again, which I'm running here, and you just see that nice build again on the aluminium. In fact, they do one of these for the Odroid in this aluminium, so I'm very tempted to go on that website and order the Odroid version to upgrade my Odroid case to one of these as well. So fantastic bits of kit. So thanks for listening in. This has been a kind of technology update, and I really appreciate any likes and subscribes. Any comments, put them down below and I will get back to you. Thank you. Bye.